The next panel to the podium, I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we are particularly honored to have with us today as I mentioned, the institutional and industry leadership of global shipping. And within that framework, having with us 4 shipping ministers is a unique privilege, and we all look very much forward to their insight. I would kindly ask Mr. Teriakidis, who is our partner for this conference, to moderate this amazing panel. And if I can start with our host, Mr. Kikilias, and Ms. Hadjimanolis, Mr. Bonett, and Marco, Sylvester. Marco came yesterday, so thank you very, very much to all 4 of you for being with us today. And of course, Mr. Kikilias will deliver the keynote remarks at lunch as well.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, thank you to our guests for taking the time and coming. Definitely to Mr. Sylvester, coming from so far away. Mr. Kikilias, Ms. Hadjimanolis, Mr. Bonett, and Mr. Sylvester, thank you for being on the panel. Just to set things a little bit on how our discussion will move on, we know that we are the last panel before lunch, so there's already pressure there. We're going to have a short opening, just a few things from myself, and then the way that we have structured the discussion is to address one question to each minister, so they can give us their mind, their peace of mind, their opinion about certain topics, and then we're going to have a series of questions that will be shared across, and all the ministers will be able to express their views. We're going to close with just final question, which is for the future. And then it's lunch. We won't take any questions, I'm afraid to say, but we'll close it there. And I believe that we already have good panelists. And then with their insight, we're going to have a very interesting discussion, sparking further discussions in lunch. So already we have heard different panels addressing the net zero framework, the IMO work that was done throughout the years, and especially what happened last year. We spoke about, in this forum, about energy transition, how leaders and stakeholders drive the industry forward, banks, finance, and so forth, as well as technology and AI, the previous panel. So we will try to cover, as I said, a few topics of interest. Then basically, I want to say also that I'm looking forward to see what we're doing from now on, so how we move to the future. Because the truth is that there are a lot of things that have happened up until today, especially on decarbonization, but it would be very interesting, and I think you'll see our participants to see what happens from now on. So basically, if we can start, we'll go with the in line as everybody sitting next to me. So I'll start with Mr. Kikilias. Minister, Greece controls basically the largest merchant fleet in the world. Beyond that, there have been many projects in Greece that have taken place with infrastructure, like, for example, FSRU Alexandroupolis, upgrade of Revithousa, and activity at the local yards, which is something that I think we all welcome. Now, if we look at us, in your agenda, for the next, let's say, 2 years, what do you have on the top of your agenda?
Thank you. Mr. Teriakidis, thank you very, very much. I'm happy to be here with Marina, Chris, and Marco. I'm very privileged. And thank you very much, Capital League, Mr. Bornozis and Mr. Bornozis, for the kind invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we, as administrations, have one and only one purpose, I think, carrying the burden of a very, very serious and important tradition and a huge industry, to be able to translate this into prosperity for the everyday life of the average Greek family, European family, American family, etc. So since you talked about the next 1 or 2 years, I think that essentially is to be able to explain to the stakeholders, to the opinion leaders, but mainly to society, what is at stake and what are we trying to do. And I think that mainly we have proven what we're trying to do with acts and practically running and doing stuff towards the right direction, I think, rather than discussing it. So everyday life is influenced by global commerce. And global commerce is run through a global fleet. 20% is Greek-owned fleet, and we're very, very privileged and happy and honored for that, through sea. So 80 to 90% of global commerce is through our ships, through the fleet, and well, that means that in order for the average family to be able to prosper, then the goods should have a limited price, energy also, and we shouldn't see much of inflation. So the deals that are going to be decided or not decided in the times, weeks, months, and year to come are going to be decisive. Why? Because we were ready to implement, vote or not vote, a deal in terms of the IMO concerning taxation and polluting through the global fleet. Logical. Can somebody say that the global fleet should pay if they pollute? In a logical way. But on the other hand, what was ready to happen, unfortunately, we were ready to tax our ships globally in terms of new fuels, biofuels, or some kind of fuel that does not exist yet. It's only 0.5% of the global needs. In terms of 2027, some 130 billion euro and 100 to 300 billion euro per year until 2035. Would the ship owners take the burden of all that? I don't think so. I think that would be shifted to the charterers, because it would be a bill that they could not afford to pay, shift to the charterers, and from there to actual economy. So where would that burden go? To everyday people and everyday families, in terms of more inflation, increasing the prices of energy, and increasing the prices of goods. This is unacceptable. No administration can accept that, and of course, the Greek administration, the Greek Prime Minister, decided otherwise, and within our European family, first of all, we tried early to make everybody understand that our policies influence, first of all, and affect people. And that's where we're dedicated at. And then, of course, we have our allies, like the United States of America, and we had common grounds on that. And it has to be decided also in the future, not just in the past. So what do we want? We want a strong industry. Why? Because this is huge competitiveness for the European Union, huge competitiveness for Cyprus, Greece, Malta, the United States, but mainly the people are going to profit through that. Controlling the prices, being able to find solutions that are going to narrow the prices down. So what we do is effective. I think it was successful in a way. After 2 decades of negotiations, unfortunately, global community, global industry, and global community in terms of the IMO did not find the solution. So that zero net framework was not voted, if you ask me correctly. And now what we have to do, clearly discuss with the industry, get them involved, work together as member states in the European Union and out of the European Union, and decide on a new deal that will work for the average and common people, either they're Greeks or Cypriots or wherever they are in the world. And that is to the profit of many, and the industry also, and of course institutions. We abide and we support the IMO, of course. We seek a global framework, yes, but we want to do it in a way that will not hurt our economies and will not hurt our societies. And of course, we have a vision towards the future of a cleaner planet and more green planet but we want our societies and our people, our families to be able to survive today and tomorrow to get to that.
Okay, thank you very much. You've touched upon a little bit on the next question that I wanted to ask, but thank you, because you are clear. I'll give you the opportunity if you want to add something later on, by all means. Minister Hadjimanolis, welcome again. Now, Cyprus has built a reputation for resilience and high standards within the Cyprus registry. We see that every year. You have the Maritime Cyprus, and recently you also mentioned that the registry has increased by 20% over the last 2 years. So considering that, and as per your comments, shipping is at a pivotal point. So what are your plans as well for the years ahead to further develop your register?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Bornozis and Olga, for the invitation and for giving us the opportunity to collaborate between the shipping community. It is an honor to be here representing the Republic of Cyprus. Thank you, Yorgo, for the question. Indeed, it's now been 3 years since I took office, and building stronger the shipping registry was one of the main priorities of government of Nikos Christodoulidis. And to be honest, I see here a lot of ship owners that have trusted us because the success that you have set, and it's in 2.5 years, 23% actually. It's because of the people that are here, and I want to thank you about this from the bottom of my heart, because we know that every registry is compatible, every registry has their own targets, but it's because actually of the relationships that we managed to build, and I truly believe that this is the difference that we have managed to provide. I like to listen to the people, I like to hear their views, and I'm sure that this relationship will grow even bigger and stronger. And as Cyprus has assumed already the presidency of the European Union, it's now 1 month, and shipping is international. And we believe that Cyprus, because of the geopolitical position, we can be a bridge between the European Union, the Arab world, but also the third countries. And if we manage to build on these relationships, if we manage to understand the different characteristics that each and every one of us brings into shipping, because this is at the end of the day, the shipping, and the governments are relying on the industry. And if we cannot hear what the industry needs, then we will not be able to go forward. And I will come to decarbonization later, because I know that it's the next question. So thank you for this opportunity, and we will be taking this further in a while.
Thank you very much. Yes, decarbonization, I think it's the topic that everybody is talking, although there are other issues as well, and we will touch upon that, that's for sure. Thank you very much. Minister Bonett, now from your side, welcome again. Question about Malta now. From a Mediterranean perspective, what infrastructure priorities will matter most to keep our ports competitive and adaptable in the years ahead?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And like both ministers before me, I would like to thank the Bornozis family for inviting me here in Capital Link. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And it is significant for us being here because I was reminded by the ambassador that Malta and Greece this year celebrate 60 years of bilateral relations, one of the first countries with which Malta started bilateral relations soon after independence. So we are very proud of that, because in Greece we did not only find a partner and a country that has very similar interests to ours, but we also found a friend that we can rely on. So it's always a pleasure for us to be here. Regarding your question, yes, infrastructure is very important, because the way things are moving, we've mentioned decarbonization, but the regulation that is coming forth, I'm not speaking about net zero now, but all regulations that are coming around are looking at decarbonization. So the infrastructure that has to be created has to go hand in hand with the efforts that are being made to decarbonize. But the most important thing is that the infrastructural progress we do serves a purpose. And it has to serve the purpose of having more efficient links, of reducing costs. So, by way of an example, in order to have trade routes that are working seamlessly, we have to make sure that the infrastructure created supports the intermodality that is coming along. We have to make sure that our ports are fit enough for that. I can give you an example of what we're doing right now. We have started investing a few years ago now on onshore power supply. We are very proud of where we are as a country with our ports. And it is something that we're going to keep on investing in. We started with the cruise liner industry, which now, for all ships that may actually connect to our electricity grid, they can do so when they are in our ports, seeing that, of course, you can switch off the engines and not have all the fumes going around in the port, and for the people that live around the area as well. And now we are currently installing another onshore power supply system for a very important part of our economy, which is the Ro-Ro area where we get our goods, from. As a small island, we depend totally, if 95%, on imports coming by sea. So we have to make sure that all the investment that is being carried out by ship owners in changing the propulsion of these ships are accommodated when they come into our ports. So the infrastructure has to be spot on. Of course, when it comes to infrastructure, most of the time we think about actual physical stone and buildings and all that. But infrastructure today is very important to keep in mind digitalization efforts. It's part of port infrastructure to make sure that we create more efficient systems in order to be able to communicate better and make the experience easier for all the ships coming in, also from a digital perspective. The idea is that infrastructure has to go hand in hand with all the innovation that is going on. It does not make sense for one to go faster than the other, because otherwise there will be missteps, and ultimately that will increase costs. And finally, and I cannot stress it enough, it's security. So security infrastructure is very important. We are going through a phase in the world where we have geopolitical issues that make our security systems, and I'm not just speaking about physical security, but also cyber security and all that, vulnerable. So we have to make sure that the infrastructure is ready to be able to meet those challenges. The important thing, in my opinion, although the Mediterranean is very busy when it comes to this, it's a global challenge that we have. So we have to make sure that the industry and governments are on the same page, all the stakeholders are on the same page, because at the end of the day, we want to create infrastructure that, after all, serves the ship owner, because that is the only way, in my opinion, in which we can keep on working seamlessly.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I'll move to Deputy Assistant Secretary Sylvester. And I think we'll start discussing we'll start touching a bit on decarbonization. So, I mean, if you can share with us, we know that IMO, with the net zero framework, was about to have certain cost on international shipping, something which traditionally we don't see from IMO, which is mostly technical and regulatory organization. Now, let's start with you. What do you see as the next steps at IMO from your perspective?
Thank you for the question. I wanted to also thank our hosts and say that it's great to be up here amongst friends and amongst European friends at that here in Europe. And also just wanted to make a call to other European nations that might have some doubts or some skepticisms about the net zero framework, that the United States is here. We are your friends, and we would like to discuss what the path forward might look like. So much appreciated to the distinguished speakers here on the panel. I'm honored to be up here. And thank you for expanding the title. I was worried, here in Europe, people would think that this is a German phrase here, Das Marco Sylvester. So thank you for opening that up for everyone to know what the full title is. So as far as the path forward for the IMO, so one thing to note, and I think this will be a relief to a lot of people in this room, is that the United States is committed to the IMO as an institution. The United States last week or a couple of weeks ago announced its withdrawal from 66 international organizations. This was part of a comprehensive review by the administration to look across all international organizations and say, what actually still has value? What moves the needle and what serves a purpose? And the IMO is one of those that was preserved. I think it's been, the misconception out there is that through opposing the NZF, the United States is opposing the IMO. I think it's actually the opposite. The NZF is the threat to the IMO. Why? Because the NZF would completely change the scope and the mission of the IMO. It would turn this global technical regulator, which has served a very strong purpose in US interests as well on safety and security, into a global climate bank. That is not what the IMO is for. So that's part of why we oppose the NZF. The second thing I would like to say as far as the path forward goes. So I see, effectively two paths of where this can go. One is we rehash the acrimony and the conflict of last October, which I don't think anyone wants. The other is that we finally put aside what we refer to colloquially in the US as the net zombie framework, this thing that is, hanging out there in the back of everyone's mind. It's not alive, it's not dead, but it needs to be put aside. Then a productive conversation can take place after that. A couple of things we also think are common sense reforms for the IMO. The first is the procedure that the US proposed back in October, which is the procedure of explicit acceptance. This procedure ensures that countries are accountable to their people. This is because explicit acceptance would require countries to formally ratify environmental regulations issued by MARPOL. What this means is a country and its leaders do not have plausible deniability to say that the IMO has imposed something on them, because they would formally have to ratify all of the regulations. We think this is extremely important because we think countries should be accountable to their people. And the other thing this does is that actually it would protect the IMO from political leadership in countries pointing to the IMO and saying that something was imposed on them by this global body, rather than the countries having to take an accountable decision to ratify regulations. So that's what we see as kind of the next steps in the path forward. Again, we welcome an open dialogue from all stakeholders. The last thing I would say is it's time for industry to step up and lead and tell us what works for you. Ultimately, the net zero framework, of course, it would be imposed on consumers, but primarily and initially, it's imposed on the industry. So the idea that the industry wouldn't have a say or wouldn't be in a leadership role, I think is not correct. The industry, when something will principally affect them, should be the one saying, here's how we would like this to go. And then member states, of course, will take the ultimate decision, can react to that, but we welcome an open process, and we've really enjoyed the partnership that we've had with so many in this room. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And by opening the theme on the questions, I'll move to the rest of the participants of the panel. I think since we have European ministers and we have Cyprus chairing now, we should start with you, Ms. Hadjimanolis. Just like we've asked, what do you see happening and what should be the next steps? Because what happening and what should be the next steps, I think they're both very important from governments or other stakeholders as well.
Yes, first of all, I want to start by saying that it's not bad to be ambitious, but we need to be realistic as well. And I think that this is how we have lost it at the beginning, because we have started regulating and making decisions, as Marco said, without the industry. And when we saw that the industry didn't want what we have decided for them, then everything went into a chaos. And it is not bad to make a pause, to listen and to understand what is the best solution in order to work for everybody. Because it cannot work for some of us, even for the 27 European countries. It cannot work for some of the European countries and not for all the European countries. And this is what I said before, that we have different characteristics. So some decisions affect us, some more than other member states. And what is important is that we need to understand what the fuels will be for the future, because we have started regulating about fuels that does not exist. So if we stop and understand what is happening around us, then we will have the level playing field that we have been arguing for so many years until now, but and to have the answers, because the next extraordinary is coming. It's very near. So what do we really need? What we will have at that one? We will have the same, the one that we had before, or we will be ready in order to lead. And I believe that we can lead on that.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move to the guests outside of Greece. Mr. Bonett, your views?
How much time do we have?
We have. No, 2 minutes. It's. I think we have
We're going
a
to cancel
flexible time
lunch,
schedule
right?
from the organizers. Yes.
Yeah, no. Let's get here. I totally agree with Minister Hadjimanolis. I think moving forward, the issue is very simple. Trade is global. Trade is not regional, and the moment we start thinking in regional terms, we will negatively impact trade, and it is happening. It is happening with the ETS, the EU ETS, it is happening with Fuel EU. These are all, even though the idea behind it may be noble, because we all want to decarbonize, right? We all want to work in a cleaner way. Ultimately, though, you cannot just place burdens on anyone and render an industry so important, such as this one, in which many people have their lives depending on it, and make it uncompetitive. So the idea behind support for the net zero framework was not on the net zero framework per se, but on the idea that there's going to be a global set of rules applying for everyone. That was the initial idea. But one has to understand what happened has happened now, and we have to look forward. And we have to make sure that there is more us in the discussion rather than me. Unfortunately, I'm seeing it happen where you have parties that are sticking to their position and being immovable in those positions. And when it comes to shipping and shipping regulation, the IMO has always been a place where the industry, nations, sat down, talk to each other, listened to each other, understood each other, and then regulated in order for everyone to move forward together. And unless we start putting that spirit into the discussion again, no one is going to win. Not the countries, not the industry, and not even the people that ultimately we serve. So the coming weeks and months are going to be very important, and I have to echo Marco here next to me, how important it is for the industry to speak up, to come forward, to come up with the ideas. So ultimately, this is what I tell the maritime industry in Malta myself. I am here to try to make legislation which is better for you, to be more efficient. So ultimately, the industry has to guide policy in order to arrive where we all want to go together, which is decarbonization, but in a practical way, in a realistic way, without creating unnecessary burdens for anyone. So to conclude, because that's why I said how much time do we have, because this discussion can take hours. It is very important for those parties right now who are dead set on the net zero framework, which was not approved, to understand what the other people are saying, especially the economic element, which is very important because it will create burdens that should not be there, and ultimately decide on a framework, if there is going to be a framework, that everyone is comfortable in implementing. We all want to decarbonize. We need the time to decarbonize. We just cannot levy taxes, and one day we will decarbonize. There are many questions that need to be answered from a technical level. Marina spoke about the fuels of the future. There are many questions that have to be addressed on a geopolitical level. So ultimately, everybody's goal, and I conclude how I started, has to be how we're going to do something for us and not for me. If we tackle the discussion in this way, I think ultimately there will be an alternative plan that will find everyone in agreement.
Can I add to what he said? So one thing I think that the minister said that's so important is that we can't have these regional regulations popping up. And I think one thing to really understand here is the same entities that push for the regional regulations are the ones that are pushing for the net zero framework without committing to withdrawing the regional regulations in the first place. So if there is to be an alternative solution that is global, the table stakes, the bare minimum that needs to happen prior to that is a firm commitment to withdraw regional frameworks.
Okay, clear. You want to add something, Mr. Bonett? Or?
No, I was going to say that I couldn't agree more. That's it. It's very simple for me.
Okay, good. Since Ms. Hadjimanolis mentioned about alternative fuels, I think, first of all, thank you very much. You were all, I believe, clear about your position about what should happen from now on with the regulations and IMO. Now, since you mentioned about the new fuels, whatever those fuels might be, anything except basically oil, that there have been discussions. I know it's part of also regulation that sometimes they're pushing these new fuels, but a question since it popped up, what should the governments do, or if you believe there should be done something now, or it's not the time now, I want to hear your view, to basically align all these new fuels that will start at some point be used with infrastructure readiness and economic reality. Do you have any views on that, Mr. Kikilias, perhaps?
Okay, first of all, in my opening remarks, I stated out the framework of what I believe, and it's more than obvious that we all believe, is the most important issue that has to do with societies, global economy, commerce, energy, shipping, shipyards, fuel companies, tech companies, etc. So following up, now you're asking us about where is technology and tech companies, where are they going to, and how about fuel companies, and is there any breakthrough, and then ship owners, what ships do they order, and how is this going to be shaped, into the future, once again, because the mandate of Kyriakos Mitsotakis and administration is always the same. We work for the many, so prices should be held down. We work for the average Greek family, so you cannot have them paying crazy bills in terms of electricity, everyday goods, and have inflation on their wages. So I don't think that nobody knows exactly what the next step is going to be. I respect the effort in terms of biofuels, and I understand that this is something that we're going to see in the near future. But reality is that we're here now. We're talking about the transitional fuel, which is LNG. And since that fuel we have, it's a fuel that we must work on until we find another solution. I think that potentially some biofuels can be used. There will be a discussion sooner or later, I feel, in the sector about nuclear energy. It's something that we will see, maybe not in 5 years, maybe not in 8 years or 10 years, maybe in 15 years, but I think that there's a discussion open also towards that. And then again, to be able to reach to another decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, it must be viable for everybody. So it should be in a pattern, in a way that is going to be doable for the industry, doable for the providers, doable for the administrations, but mainly doable for the societies.
Clear, thank you. Ms. Hadjimanolis, to expand on your initial comments.
Yes, I want to add on that we need to provide, as governments, we need to provide stability to the shipping community. And to provide stability, we need to slow down a bit. We have been deliberating for so many years about the next fuels, but still we are here and we are still discussing about it. So for me, the most important thing is to deregulate, stop regulating about something that we do not know what will be, listen and help the ship-owning community and provide for them in order to find the correct fuel, that, because it's not only the correct fuel, but in the quantity as well. And at the moment, we do not have not even the right fuel, but also the quantity. So we need to step down, we need to listen, and we still have time in order to be pragmatic. And I say all the time the word pragmatic because the industry has been arguing about it for many years, but as governments, we haven't listened a lot about it. And I think now we understood that we need to step back, to listen, and give the opportunity to the industry to tell us what they need.
Okay. Yes. The industry agrees, correct, and I think you're the panel with the most clapping so far, you know. Before we even finish. Mr. Bonett, your views?
The situation is very unclear because as you're right in wanting a predictable future, because there will be no investment if it is not clear and predictable. And ultimately, and I'm very happy that the United States has made it clear how important the IMO is, because ultimately the IMO, and we strongly believe it, is still the body that can come up with the regulation that sets the course for everyone to follow. Of course, it has to be done in a way where the industry points to the IMO the direction in which it has to go. Fuels is a very particular argument because for centuries, ships have moved only with one clear type of fuel, whether it was wind, whether it was steam, whether it was oil. Now we are looking at different options, but these different options sometimes are creating more confusion rather than provide clarity. So moving forward, we have to make sure we do have an alternative fuel right now, which is LNG. Is it the best for decarbonization? Maybe not, but it's already better than what we have. So we have to pursue that road. I agree a lot with Minister Kikilias when he said, let's go in this direction and continue working on the other types of fuels that we may have, like biofuels and nuclear, which is an interesting way forward. But ultimately, it all has to lead to clarity, because if we keep on going in this direction, and I speak to the industry all the time, I see that the industry wants to move forward, but there is like this handbrake always holding the industry back. And I think part of it is also the responsibility of the policymaker, because we are not discussing enough, not listening to each other enough to see exactly in which direction we are going. The 20th century was very important because it was the century that has witnessed the most technological innovation in history. Unfortunately, the 21st century is not keeping up with the 20th. So it's time that we go back to our scientists, the people who actually know what they're talking about, and listen to them to tell us where we should go forward, and not put in other interests that I or you may have, but actually see what is good for all of us. The IMO, the law of the sea, they were all created for the common heritage of mankind. And this is, I think we should put this back on the top of the agenda, not just on fuels, but of anything we discuss in terms of the maritime industry.
A pragmatic approach like Mrs. Hadjimanolis said, basically. Thank you. Mr. Sylvester, so we can close this question, your views?
Sure. So just to zoom out a little bit and talk about, the fuels that have actually been under discussion, right? So there are three primary fuels that are rated as, what they call zero near zero fuels: ammonia, hydrogen, and methanol. The common theme, the through line to all of these, is they require an inordinate amount of electricity to produce. I'm not aware of any country, maybe one, that has a surplus of electricity that they can, go ahead and use towards energy production. I'm not aware of a country that in the future, especially not in this region, that has that. And so when we're talking about affordability, we cannot lock ourselves into a mandate that requires a surplus of electricity production because it's simply non-viable right now. In addition to that, all three of these fuels have other major issues. Ammonia famously has extreme safety issues. And when you're talking about the IMO as a safety regulator, as a regulator that's there to protect our mariners, you can't mandate the use of a fuel that is so dangerous to them at this point. The third is energy density. So in hydrogen, of course, we know has extreme energy density issues. So where does that leave us as far as the fuel types? I mean, we could do a show of hands in this room and see who has a significant portion of ammonia, green hydrogen, or methanol today, and not one hand would go up. So why are we trying to predict the future? That's not our job. Our job here is to make smart decisions that benefit our people. And so we need to have the humility to say, we cannot mandate a course for the future. If they tried to do that in video technology back in the 80s, we would all be on Betamax instead of watching, Netflix on our phone. You cannot mandate what the technology of the future will be. So we need to be responsive to industry, to what's actually viable, to what actually is in use, and what is actually scalable for the future of shipping. And we need to, move forward together. From the US perspective, really this isn't about, decarbonization, this is about energy dominance for us. So we want to be the #1 energy power in the world. That is what our view is when we look at the shipping industry and we look at the global energy landscape. But just to leave you all with, the closing message from the US, please come and have a dialogue with us. We want to speak with industry, we want to speak with our partner nations, and we want to put this unfortunate episode behind us and hopefully move forward in a more productive direction.
Thank you. I think that was clear. So basically, in order to wrap up, I know we have about 5 minutes. What I'm keeping is that basically IMO, you all agree, is the body to regulate and go forward. We do need one global regulation for this thing. Yeah.
I reserve, the U.S. position is not necessarily wed to global carbon regulation.
Let me put it this way, IMO should keep doing what they're doing.
IMO should focus on their core mission.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that, okay. Yeah, it's fine. We have to wrap up at some point, so yes, thank you. Have a pragmatic scientific approach as far as decarbonization is concerned. Let's not have another net zombie framework, if I remember correctly, and listen to the industry. I think that resonates quite a lot from all of you. So in order to close as quickly as you can, you have the audience waiting for lunch as well. You are important, but yes. Closing question. Looking ahead towards 2030, which is not that far away, if you can make one change in shipping, regulatory, practical, or market-wise, whatever, that would make the biggest impact of all, what would that be? Let's start with Mr. Kikilias and go all the way to Mr. Sylvester.
A lot of things are happening in the planet in, unfortunately, in every day or every week mode. So 2030, it's a long way, seeing how things have been speeding up. But I think that the industry should open up. So branding the industry, I think, is an important step. People within the industry shouldn't be scared to open up to societies, to the people, to everybody, to politicians, to opinion makers or leaders, and make everybody understand what a key role, what an essential role the industry plays in everyday life, in the fruits we have on our table, the vegetables, the food, and the everyday goods.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the quick reply. Ms. Hadjimanolis?
I think I would like one global regulation that will work not only for the green transition, but for everything. Something that is pragmatic, that is realistic, that it can work for everybody, and most importantly, that it can take us further, hopefully.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Mr. Bonett?
I'm going to mention two very quickly.
Yeah, you're allowed. Off you go.
One till 2030, one immediately. Till 2030, I'm going to appeal to the industry here. We have to make the seafarer profession more attractive again. I think right now we are in a situation where it is not lucrative and it is not attractive to become a seafarer. This has to be done with an effort between the policymaker, the industry, and academic institutions. We need to increase the number of seafarers we have by making it safer and by making it more lucrative to be a seafarer. That's one thing that I'd like to see change. The second one, I don't want to wait till 2030, I want this now. We signed up to join a union of European nations. And the key word has always been union. This union is not acting as a union anymore. And something I want to see changing now is that all countries in the EU understand that we are all Europeans, yes, but we all have our own personal, national, national preferences on how things should be done. Now, I'm not saying that the Maltese position should prevail or the Greek position should prevail, but we cannot have a situation where a section of the EU imposes its will on another section of the EU. That is not a union. So for 2026, I would really like for the European Union to become a union again.
Thank you. And Mrs. Sylvester?
Just 2 words, common sense. That's it.
Okay, good.